Hi, and you're listening to the Mind Fruit podcast, bringing you mental health and well-being promotion to help you live your best life.
All information discussed on this podcast is research and evidence-based. However, it is ultimately the opinions of the Mind Fruit podcast, and this is not a substitute to seeking professional medical advice.
Hi guys, happy Wellbeing Wednesday. Today we're going to speak to you about work-life balance.
Something we all need a bit of.
Yeah, I think some have had it a bit too much lately, haven't they?
Well, some people have either been working too much and not had much rest time, and then on the flip side, a lot of people unfortunately haven't been able to work, and then they've had too much rest time, not enough work time. So
yeah, it's a state where we just got to have a load of balance, really.
Plod on.
Yeah.
So, Carl, what does work-life balance mean?
Having a work-life balance basically means having the right balance between working and living.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, having a good work-life balance is down to those little moments between work and life. Some people think that work is their purpose and they thrive off constantly being busy. Or some people struggle to maintain that balance and find they need more time to themselves to relax than others do to balance work. Some people get the balance by participating in hobbies. Some people get this by meditation and mindfulness. Some people get this by having a good lay-in.
That's me.
So most of the time, like when we're in school and they're saying kind of what do you want to do, what do you want to work as, and I think some people think like sometimes that their work is their purpose, and most people kind of can define themselves by their job, and if they're having a bad day at work, then their whole life becomes, a catastrophe.
Yeah. I mean, think of it this way. If somebody asked you to tell them about yourself, you'd first thing you'd say, "Hello, my name is Carl, and I'm a nurse." You'd tell them about what you do in a job.
Mm-hmm.
It's before you would even think about saying, "Oh, and I play guitar, I play bass.
Yeah.
I like to, make my own music." You wouldn't tell them that. You'd be telling them about your work.
Yeah. You probably need to work on having your identity away from work, away from your children. They could be a massive part of your life. You've got a relationship, you've got these kids, but when someone puts on their Facebook like all pictures of their children, and you think, well, that's their parent side, but where is their side? Where is...
You can have different roles, can't you?
Yeah.
You can have your work role, your parenthood role, your own role. And I guess that can be what balance, the work-life balance is about, making sure that you get them times to yourself as well. Yeah,
to be you, to identify with the who you are, and those little moments in between. It doesn't need to be on your own. You can involve your kids, you can involve your spouse or your partner, but it's basically finding the balance between working and having a life outside of work.
Yeah, having a work-life balance means different things to different people as well, doesn't it? So spending time to identify what this means to you is ultimately the first step in your journey to get a good work-life balance. If you don't understand what you need in order to have that good work-life balance, what you need to do, how are you ever going to be able to, put things in place to achieve it? Work can easily take over our life if we let it. It's our responsibility to make sure it doesn't, if that's not what we want.
Yeah.
For me personally, having a good work-life balance means to be able to go to work, do my job, and come home with no worries or lingering thoughts, that intrude on my free time. If I find myself thinking about work on a day off, I find that I don't feel like I've had a day off, and it just seems to add pressure and stress for me.
Yeah.
So trying to put things in place to make sure I'm able to achieve this is important. For me anyway. Everybody's so different, but for me, just when I'm not at work, being able to not think of work is what matters to me. That is what makes me feel like I've had time off.
So to me, work-life balance means kind of me being able to take a day off and especially do the things that rejuvenate me and make me feel like I've recharged my batteries, because that's mainly the thing that I'm doing throughout my day in my job, is kind of giving all my energy, all my passion, all my resources to people. And sometimes it can just feel like you're a bit stretched. Sometimes, like, I can come home from work and I won't even talk, like, because I'm just that flat out. So when I've got a day off, I like to fill it with as much things that will help me think less about work. Because I think that's the thing when you work in a care home, you can be really, you see them as much as you do your own family, probably more sometimes. And it can become very involving. And sometimes you find yourself thinking, oh, how are they doing? How are they getting on? When you should be just completely leaving that at the door, really. But it's hard to do that as a nurse. So if I plan to go on a walk or plan to see my family, becoming more kind of aware of and savouring that moment is much better, because then you're not thinking about work, you're not thinking about all those things that you've got to do when you go back in, because that time is your time. I think most of the people who are working from home can relate to this a lot more now. So they're not in the office, they're not kind of stuck in a place where they don't want to be. They're in their home that they've chose. And unless you, don't have an office room that you can go to, then I'm sure work-life balance can be managed a lot better, especially if you have kids. A lot of people that I spoke to are kind of really happy that they don't have to spend their time away from their children, and they don't miss all their milestones that are happening, that are going on, because they're not at the office. They get time to get a little bit of time out of their day to be able to spend that time with their children and things. And from an employment point of view, people aren't taking as much time off for their kids and for their family when they're ill. They can sort things out, and then they can deal with childcare a bit more easier than being at an office and just having to leave.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of your own sickness as well, actually, there's quite a few times that you would perhaps, if you had to go in an office and you had to go and work around other people, you'd be saying, I need the day off.
Yeah, because you don't want to infect them.
Yeah, but if you're sat at home, all right, you might not be able to do, be all singing, all dancing, do everything that you used to do.
Yeah, your performance.
But there's still stuff that you could do. You don't necessarily need to take that day off work. You could get on with jobs related to that that normally get pushed aside.
Yeah.
So actually, in terms of employers, it should reduce sickness. Time off sick.
Yeah.
Potentially.
And I think the whole thing of everyone realising that it can be done from home, I think people will be just making a lot of better decisions with their own businesses when they're entrepreneurs and things like that, because they know that they don't have to have an office, they don't have to pay for heating, electricity, other than paying in their own house, or they can just go and live wherever they want, because if there's nothing tying you down to an office, then the world's your oyster, isn't it? Yeah, you can go anywhere. And that's kind of where I strive to be in the next, I'd say, 5 years, is to be independent with not having to be tied down to a certain country, a certain place, a certain lifestyle, and just choose my own way of living. But I haven't obviously experienced it as much as a lot of people have, and they do have negatives. There's a lot of pros and cons of it. So what are yours, Fran? Because you work from home, don't you?
Yeah, I do at the moment. So, okay, these are my experiences with working from home. They might be very different to other people's. So keep that in mind when I'm, sharing how it's affected me. Yeah, there are positives to working from home. I'm saving money and I'm able to get up an hour later because I haven't got a 45-minute drive to work in the morning.
That makes all the difference to
Yeah.
you, doesn't it?
But if I'm being honest, I've struggled on and off, with working from home. I'm sorry that the next bit of information is probably going to be my negative views, but ultimately, at this point, I am just grateful that I have a secure job and that I'm able to work from home and that I've not lost any income, over the multiple lockdowns. So I have periods of time where it's fine and I'm enjoying working from home. I'm enjoying not having to leave the house so much. There's a lot of benefits to it. But I also have periods of time where I feel really lonely and isolated. I know I live with Carl, so ultimately I'm not, but it is often how I feel. I've never met most of my colleagues in person. I don't know much about them. I don't know what their interests are or what they like. I don't know, what their difficulties are or how to support them. And ultimately, they don't know much about me either. There are a few colleagues that I got to meet when I first started the job, but I never really got to know them. The chit chat you'd normally have with your colleagues, they're just on. They're just a face on a screen to me.
Yeah. I think that's what people meant when they were speaking about the future and kind of they just saw heads in a jar, like consulting heads. You wheel a head into a meeting or something like that, but it's the exact same thing now, isn't it? We're just all talking heads on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sat down all day, every day, struggling to motivate myself to work in the environment which I would normally relax in. There doesn't feel any space, for me between work and relaxing. So all I need to do when 5 p.m. hits is to close my laptop and that's it. There's no drive home, no nothing, no time to, reflect or distress. It means I often don't feel like I have finished working. I do struggle to switch off most nights. I've actually started to get some pressure marks on my heels and my feet, because I've had them up on the sofa all day, as I often work, with my lap table in the front room.
Yeah, well, you usually get that when you're like late 60s.
Yeah. If anybody watching has worked in a care home before, I need some repo boots. But, I'm sat down every day talking to people. I don't know what they look like, which is strange. You build up a picture in your head based on their voice, their experiences, their mannerisms, but ultimately I haven't a clue. I don't think this would bother me, but ultimately it really is strange. What colour is their hair? Are they short or tall? It's hard to get to know somebody who you have no clue what they look like. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just weird.
But that's it, isn't it? It's like most of your communication comes from either your body or...
Most of it's non-verbal, yeah.
Yeah, most of it's non-verbal, so it's really hard to gauge that over the phone or just on a Teams meeting.
Yeah. And I mean, we do video calling, that is an option, so I would be able to see what they look like, but not everybody wants that or has access to that.
Yeah, not everyone's at this moment in time really knows about video calls and things.
But, these are my experiences. Ultimately, I don't really enjoy working from home, although I do appreciate the few benefits it gives me. But, it's not going to be everyone's experiences. We all, we're all so different. We all have different characteristics. For me, who's not naturally motivated to do anything that requires any form of movement or effort, Especially when I'm at home, it's difficult. I don't know if that makes sense. But, what it feels like to me is, when you're supposed to have a day off, but work calls a meeting or tells you have to go on training or something. So then the whole time that you're there, or the whole day, you sort of feel cheated from a day off, because the whole time you're thinking that you should be relaxing in front of the TV with a cuppa, but yet you're being forced to work. That's kind of how it feels like to me. It feels like it's a day off that I'm being forced to work, compared to when I went into the office. My brain knew I was at work and I just cracked on with my day. But I have learned strategies to help me working from home. I split my time between the sofa and the desk because I feel more productive sat at my desk, but I feel physically more comfortable sitting on the sofa. I've learned that I need to allocate myself time to do all those random small tasks that gets pushed aside, because them small tasks are the things that keep me up at night when I suddenly remember that I forgot to do it. That's what I worry about, them small things. To-do lists and my diary has been a lifesaver to me. And to make sure that I have time in between phone calls to, digest the information, document it correctly, and just reflect on it. But as I said, again, everyone's experiences is so different. I would love to hear if anybody has had any really positive experiences with working from home, or what you do to ensure you manage, you get that work-life balance while you're working in your home environment, and how you differentiate the two. Because I definitely haven't mastered it yet, although it does seem to be getting better and easier as time goes on, and my body and my brain adapting to it, and it starts to feel a little bit more natural. But yeah, it's my experiences.
So we're in the middle of a hailstorm now, so if there's any crackling or like vinyl type sounds, you know what it is. So kind of...
Oh, did you hear that thunder?
So if you think of employment now, so you go to uni, you pay a lot to get this dream job. Say you get a house that you can live in, then you need bills. You get a car to get you to a job that you paid to do, that just gives you enough money to pay for the car, to pay for the bills, to pay for the house you spend no time in. What is the sense in that? You're completely snookered everywhere you look. Everything is set up to keep you in debt and therefore working more hours. So I've been to university and I just feel that the more I work, the more's taken off me in the way of student loans. So at the moment, we're building a brand to just free ourselves from these kind of chains, well, I think they are, that we've been kind of bound to. And yeah, it's still a lot of hard work, and it will be for a few years to get this brand up and running. But we know that we add value to other people's lives. And as long as there are people out there that need this help, then there'll always be a calling for it and for this material. We just find something that we're good at, that we're passionate about, that we really kind of have a lot of interest in doing, and we want to make a business out of it. Obviously, we want to have a lot of information for free, but eventually I'd like to finish work and just work on this for a living. I want to be able to choose my own hours, to choose when I can get up in the morning, choose when I can not want to work. I just feel like, I don't really fancy doing any work today, so let's not do it. I'll still put the work in when it's needed. We don't have to work like we used to before, with, clocking in, clocking out, using all your energy for money. We have to be realistic with our goals, and I don't think work-life balance is such a big thing to ask. But Rich, when we think of rich people, we think of money, living in mansions, we think about people on yachts. But rich can mean so many things. What makes your life richer? Selling your time for money, or losing money and gaining time? At the end of the day, at the end of my life, I know I'm not going to say, just give me £1 more, give me one more day at work. Most of the time when people are talking about their last words, they want more time. They wish they'd spent more time with their family, wish they'd given this person this advice.
But, just to remind you though, everybody is so different, and if you enjoy working and that's what gives you your life, then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Some of us work to live, some of us live to work, and that's totally fine.
You just need to find your balance, and that's why I said before, identifying what you need to get your balance, personally, for you, is so important.
Yeah. It's not always about the money you earn. Sometimes it depends on where your priorities are in life. Like loads of people will be earning lots of money, but then because their lifestyle is so expensive, they'll be living right on the line, spending almost right up to their limit. The more you earn, the more you spend. So what I'm trying to say is I kind of want more mini retirements. I don't just want to work up until I'm 70, saving up my whole life for the day where I don't have to work. Because if my work has been my purpose for the whole of my life, then I'm going to feel not needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think retirement can be quite hard for a lot of people to get their head around, when you've worked for 50 years.
Yeah.
And that 5 days a week, all of your life. Well, where's your identity when that's gone? How do you know, how do you know who you are? How do you know what to do?
Yeah,
how do you fill that time?
I know. That's why I was saying you've got to identify what you like, what you need to do in your life to have an identity of yourself, of your own outside of work.
Yeah, definitely. There is a purpose for everybody. It may have been lost between all the things that we try and do, in our day-to-day life. But yeah, I challenge you, have a think about your own work-life balance. Are you satisfied with it? Is it what you want? Do you feel like you need to do something additional to make sure you feel less stressed about work, to make sure you've got a work-life balance, or you're happy with it? I challenge you to sit down and have a think about it, because I think you'll be surprised when you really, start to think about it.
So that fits in well with next week's episode of routine and structure. So we'll tell you a bit more about how you can structure your routines and structure your day for a bit more of work-life balance, a bit more of what you want throughout life, and how to plan for that. Some of the most successful people in life say, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. We don't want that for you. We want the best, and we think you can achieve that. So join us for next week. And in the words of Stephen King, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Thank you for listening, and if this information was valuable to you, or you think it might be for somebody else, then like, comment or share. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. To get more of this content, hit that subscribe button, and if you're watching on YouTube, ring that bell. It'll notify you every time we upload.
Check out our weekly blog at mind-fruit.co.uk. We hope to see you next week for Wellbeing Wednesday.